Hello, welcome to the Sloan Zone. Oh my god, guess what? Game of Thrones Season 6 is over. It was amazing. It was everything we dreamed it would be, and more. Am I right? I actually literally started doing like a little kind of dance thing when, spoiler alert, when the whole Jon Snow thing was revealed, when Ned Stark went into the Tower of Joy and found Lyanna there, and she told him about the baby, to protect the baby that we now see as Jon Snow, that we all knew was coming. It's one of those great moments where you know it. I mean, most people knew it. You know it, and then you see it happen, and you just want to shout for joy. Exciting times, awesomeness. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is what can you be reading in the meantime? You know, season 6 is over. We have to wait a long time before season 7 comes along. Unfortunately, it's all sad. We're just like anxious, you know. So I have some great fiction for you. P.T. Hilton, Zane Holloway. I've talked about it before on this channel, but if you haven't seen that, go check it out. The first book is called Thorn and Tangles, and it's great. Thorns and Tangles. I don't know if there's an S on there. Great book. You can just get the whole omnibus. Zane Holloway. It's really cool. It's about Zane and Lily and their assassins, and there's cool character moments. It's not too intense and crazy with the world building, but there's cool magic system that you'll enjoy. Read that one. You'll have a lot of fun with it. And that one's fun because it's written in six books in the series. So the first one I think is only like 30,000 words, which is pretty short in fantasy terms. But for some of us who come from the TV world, you might enjoy it because you sit down, you can read it in a pretty quick amount of time and be done with it. And it's still awesome epicness. And if you want to read all 6 in a row, you can. Next one, Michael Scott-Earle. He wrote a book called The Destroyer, which is free right now on Amazon. I don't know if it's going to be free much longer, so if the price has gone up by the time we chat, I know he'll be running promos on it all the time. So at some point you can get that book for free. And then he has Destroyer 2, 3, and 4, I believe. Amazing books, awesome guy. He's been really cool. I connected with him online, and he's been mentoring me because I also am writing fantasy, as you hopefully know. So go check that out. My fantasy is Land of Gods, probably cool. But in the meantime, I don't want to self-promote too much. I already do that on my other episodes. In the meantime, go check out The Destroyer. It's a cool concept. It starts off with a little spoiler here. Kind of starts off with this ancient person. Well, I want to call them ancients because there's other people in the book called ancients, basically elves. Starts off with this guy who's kind of resurrected. He was kind of put under a spell or dead or whatever, and he's brought back, and he's like this guy who was legendary, who had killed all the ancients in the past because they had tried to wipe out humans or something like this. And so now they need him back to try to once again, the ancients have returned or something, and he has to destroy them. So I'm only like 4 chapters in, if you're wondering why I don't know more about the story. But I've read those 4 chapters, and I'm like, yes, this is awesome, and that's why I want to promote that one. I mentioned my book, Land of Gods. It's kind of like Game of Thrones in the way that that's based on the Wars of the Roses. My book was based on the Peloponnesian War, the wars in the ancient Greece, so between Athens and Sparta. Pretty cool. I totally changed it, of course, made it my own. It goes a little bit of fantasy in book 1, not really though. A little teeny bit more in book 2, not really though. And book 3, bam, whaps you in the face with some fantasy. So check that out. If you like those kind of stories like George Martin's Game of Thrones, not a lot of fantasy. It's more about the characters, but some fantasy happens. A little teeny bit of magic or whatever you want to call it. More so probably in Game of Thrones than my book, but I'd like to hear what you have to say because book 3 is coming out pretty soon. If you want to be on the beta reader list for that, hit me up. Find me on email if you want, justinsloanauthor@gmail.com. Going on, there's a few famous ones now. So those authors are authors that I think are amazing, but I bet you probably haven't heard of a lot of you. Brandon Sanderson, of course, the Stormlight Archives. I've talked about it before on this channel. Amazing books. It starts with The Way of Kings. Really cool story about a slave named Kaladin. That's not his name, is it? I forget right now, but awesome book, The Way of Kings. It's about the slave who basically was a soldier, was betrayed, and made a slave, and then fights and has some kind of special abilities that you'll start seeing that are really awesome. Brandon Sanderson's like the master of magic systems. You got to check that out. And then, of course, there is Robert Jordan with The Wheel of Time. I actually couldn't get into those too much. They're a little bit too long-winded for me. But if you read my fiction and you're like, wow, Justin doesn't have enough description and he's too fast, he doesn't slow down enough, you'll love Robert Jordan because he's the exact opposite. And that's why I'm trying to avoid that. As a reader, I love like the fast-paced, don't spend so much time just diddle-doddling around. Robert Jordan is that person that I'm trying not to write like. I'm more of a Brandon Sanderson type. Brandon Sanderson, you'll see, doesn't waste time. He gets to the point. He gets things done. George Martin, somewhere in between. But like I said, with the magic system, not too much on the magic wells. And these guys are way more on the magic side. Wheel of Time, though. Lots of people love it. There's like 13 or 14 books in the series. Yeah, good stuff. Terry Goodkind, I do love. His writing is epic. It's great. It's right where it needs to be. check out the Wizard's First Rule, I believe, in the Sword of Truth series. Once again, I'm only like halfway through that book, but I'm loving it. I'm reading too many books in the halfway points, and I need to just finish some and move on. But it's like limited time. You want to know a little bit about all of these. Pick them up, check them out, the first few chapters, see what you think. And maybe by the time you read all of those, season 7 will come, Game of Thrones. So be prepared. Be prepared. All right, thanks, guys.